I want to welcome every one of you here this morning. Some old friends have been friends for a long time, not necessarily that you're old people. That's a good start, huh? My name is Mark Holbrook. I'm President and CEO of Evangelical Christian Credit Union. That's where you're at. And it's a privilege for us to co-sponsor with Cape and Krause this event today. And we're just delighted that you are here. And so thank you for coming. This is a great turnout. And we want to just start out with a few thoughts. Are we going to open in prayer? How does that work, Jack? I didn't even ask you. Can I do that at the end of this? How about right now? All right. Bow your heads and close your eyes. Pray. Our gracious Lord, we thank you so much for your abundant, amazing grace that you shower upon us every day of our lives in ways that we see and we rejoice and are amazed, and in ways that we don't have a clue. And Lord, through it all, you purify us and draw us to yourself and enable us by your Spirit to accomplish that which we can never do on our own. And you allow us, Lord, to lay up treasures in heaven when we respond to your guidance and your leading humbly before you. Lord, we just pray that today, as we are equipped, that you would honor this time, that you would bless this time, that your Spirit would lead us into all truth. For your name's sake, we commit the time to you in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, this morning I want to just take a few moments and give you a little economic commentary. I only have a few moments, and then just a little bit more about ECCU. You can read that stuff there. I won't comment on that anymore. That's sort of like a promo thing there, so read it. But on the economy, as we start out today, just a few thoughts that I think you pretty much are all aware. You're astute people. You read the same stuff that I read, I'm sure. But the consensus really is that we're not going to be experiencing a double dip recession. That's pretty much not going to happen by consensus. But it doesn't feel very good. The recession's been over for a year and a half. Did you know that? How many of you feel like it's over? Yeah, almost no one. And that's the way it is because the economy is pretty much stalled. We're looking at a GDP under 3%, under 2% most likely for the next several years. Unemployment's going to remain high in the 9% range for another several years, probably 5 more years. We really are, I've read now twice from different sources, most recently heard from UCLA forecast just this last week that we are in our own lost decade, where housing and commercial real estate values are not likely to reach their 2005 levels until 2015 to regain those. And some have said 2017. Those are significant issues that impact ministry. And what it tells us is that this isn't just a kind of thing that's going to get over pretty soon. I think we all went into it thinking, oh, okay, a year, 18 months, 2 years. Now we're looking at really the better part of a decade. And we need to be adjusting our financial management accordingly. If it gets better sooner, praise God. But let's not plan for that. Just here in Orange County, to give you an idea, there are over 7,000 foreclosed single-family homes in Orange County. It's going to take years just to clean out that environment. Now, praise God again, some folks are getting really good deals on homes right now. But maybe some of you got to buy a home for the very first time in this economy. But it is dragging down the overall economy, and it'll be that way for a long time to come. What's more significant is while we've seen some notable increases in giving in ministries, and even in some churches, as high as 20% in thriving, growing churches that still continue, those are by far the minority. Overall giving to churches in America, according to a recent study, is at a low of 40-year low. Just to give you an idea, giving as a percentage of income is around 2.3%. Put it another way, supposing everyone in America that were faithful attenders of churches chose to tithe tomorrow at 10%, that would increase income to ministries by $172 billion. I think I said billion, but I meant million. That's a lot of money. And that is significant for ministries across this country. But more important, when giving drops, some ministries, I think, and we have seen, sadly turn inward and try to keep their programs going and pull back in and try to keep their parishioners, their members, happy with good program, rather than finding new and creative ways to share the good news of the gospel of Christ. And that is of deep concern, finding new ways to reach out to their community. One thing in particular that we need to recognize as ministries as we plan for the future and manage our finances is that the members of our churches care more today than ever before about reaching the world for Christ and demonstrating the love of Christ through practical, hands-on ministry, serving the poor, caring for those that desperately need food and water, those that are homeless. I don't know how many of you got to shared in your church, acknowledged in your church, Orphan Sunday, last Sunday, but it reflects a growing interest beginning with young people in our churches, saying, hey, I want to know what the ROM is. They don't say it that way exactly, but they want to know what's the return on my ministry investment. When I give to my church, I want to know that it's making a difference. Show me how that's happening. And if the church fails to do that, they're going to look for somewhere else to make that investment, and we're seeing that more and more. We have a stewardship responsibility to demonstrate to those that give, and sometimes give sacrificially, that we're investing kingdom dollars for kingdom work that really matter for eternity. So let's not lose that. Let's not lose sight of that. If the church isn't doing it well, they're going to find other ways to make it happen. And they're going to give to other places. Well, that's that. I encourage you to think that through a little bit. Just a quick note on what we've learned at ECCU in the last 3 years as we've gone through the Great Recession, and we're still in the middle of it, as I mentioned earlier. What's happening? As we've seen churches struggle that have never struggled before. You know, we went through the first 43 years of our existence without ever having a loan loss on a real estate loan at ECCU. We've had some through this cycle. It's been an emotional time for us, a time of sadness and sorrow that we've never had before. Let me just tell you what we learned in this process about churches. There's a lot that we've learned. Sometimes saying yes isn't really helping. It's one thing. But let me give you this. As to churches that are really struggling, some are just struggling because the economy is horrible and there's not a lot that can happen, especially in lower income areas. It's hard to see. But for those that should have made it and didn't make it, or those that are struggling and shouldn't be struggling, let me share with you 3 things quickly. First of all, we're seeing issues and weaknesses in governance and accountability. Glad that my friend Dan Busby's here today from ECFA, Evangelical Council for Financial Accountability. But churches too often have a weakness in governance, a lack of independent boards, no clear oversight. Pastors in particular too often have too much authority, too much independence, and they're not held accountable. That matters. Strong leadership, strong governance within churches is essential. Secondly, we've seen stewardship lapses. Churches and leadership living in denial that somehow God will provide when He already has provided, and He's now asking them to be good stewards and learn to live on less in times of leanness. And so they delay making hard choices or demonstrate outright unwillingness to make difficult budget decisions like actually reducing staff. And I'll tell you, through these times, that might be the best thing that could happen for the health of the church. And yet they want to hang on and turn inward more and more. And too many churches are living hand to mouth and continue living hand to mouth instead of recognizing that, hey, there are times of leanness. There are times when there might actually be 7 years of famine, and it's okay to lay up some in the storehouse. And it's okay to live out Proverbs 6 and consider the ant and be wise, who having no chief or ruler lays up for himself stores for the winter. I think more than ever, ministries are recognizing a need to be good stewards and laying up reserves and living on less than what they have, even in times of leanness. And the third thing that we've seen is a leadership integrity. Not just governance and lapses, but we're talking about direct integrity, where sadly some churches in this country are working the system, are trying to work the system, trying to force loan modifications or going into strategic defaults. That is, if I've ever heard an ungodly term in a church, there's one. What does that mean? And we've seen moral and ethical failures that have been tolerated by the church with disastrous results. And I pray that as we, as leaders, carry on the responsibility as leaders within our local churches, that we will be found faithful stewards. It's required. That we would be found courageous in making the kind of decisions that God has called us to make as leaders. The good news is that many ministries are thriving and are being purified through this process. I think even as we here at ECCU, God is working a work in us that he could never work when the times were abundant. And I pray that as you go through, as many of you go through lean times, that God will work in your hearts and your lives and draw you together stronger than ever. And I pray that your experience here today will provide a foundation that will enable you and equip you to do the work that God has called you to do. Let's not forget, the goal of stewardship isn't just making the bottom line somehow work. Our goal of stewardship is that we might be found faithful before the Lord, and that we might enable in our faithfulness the work of the gospel. And this is a time where God can do that in ways that he could never do when the times were good. So thanks for being here today. Thanks for being our very special guest. Jack, if you would.